This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Erev Shabbos Rabbi Glatstein, Parshas Shoftim. The Torah HaKadosh tells us, Shoftim v'shoitrim titen lecha b'chol sha'arecha. Judges and rulers you should place in all of your gates. So let's explain it in the following way. The Vilna Gaon in the Sefer Even Shalema makes an absolutely astounding statement. What does the Gaon say? The Gaon says in Parak Yud Ois Chaf Beis. Ready for this? Now I have two editions here with me. This is the more traditional version that people are used to. This is the version that was printed by the American Joint Distribution Committee by my grandfather, the first Sfarim published after the war. But it has a little bit of a different format. So I'm going to read to you from the new one that I'm familiar with. It's Parak Yud Ois Chaf Beis. Says the Vilna Gaon, we know la'achar mea v'esrim shana Hashem will show a person all of their maisim. Well, where is it inscribed? How will Hashem show a person all of their maisim? So the Even Shlema, the Vilna Gaon says, Be'ayin, in the eye, Rashum kol ha'olam, the whole world is imprinted, v'chal ha'shabay, and everything in it. V'chal ma'asha oisa toiv, and any good that a person does, oira, or any bad that a person does, nirsham ba'oisai makayim, is alluded to in that place, Shaba'ayin. Bitsurasai, in its image, Vidiyuknai, in its form, Ba'oisayim, on that day. Meaning the eye, on the eye, is a imprint, is a permanent sketch, and is a permanent etching of everything a person did. V'zeh shemaran la'adam l'fnei Moshe. This is what they show a person before they die. Good things and bad things. Everything a person did is inscribed on the eye. Now, the Even Shlema is a collection of the thoughts of the Vilna Gaon, and in the footnote it brings down, this is what the Gaon writes on the Heichalais, in the Kabbalistic work, Heichalais. An amazing thing. In the footnotes, the publisher writes an incredible thing, that he heard that if you want to know who the murderer is, take a picture of the person's eye, meaning whose eye? The person who was killed, and on the person who was killed's eye will be a permanent imprint of the Roitzeach. Because everything that a person sees is permanently inscribed on their eye. Now the question would be, at the end of the Parsha you have the topic of the Egla Arufa, and we want to know who the murderer is. Can you use this method to determine who the Roitzeach is? It's Mamish Ayim V'Noira, the Shal Umeshiv, Rabbi Yosef Shal Halevi Natanzan, in the Sefer Divrei Shal Ala Torah, in the end of the Sefer in the Hashmata, he says that there is a technique that if a person Chas Hashem is murdered and you don't know who the murderer is, you could go to an expert and look at the eye through some kind of prism, fragmented glass. You will see the murderer imprinted on the eye. And we're thinking about this, this is like some kind of primitive medicine that has no substantiation, no basis in reality.
If the person is dead, how do you see it?
Because the last thing, it's permanently imprinted, maybe on the eye, on the lens, you'll see. You'll see, yeah. In the Sefer Ezer Eliyahu, printed in Warsaw, 1885, Parshas Vayeshev, he said that he heard from the philosophers that they found someone who was slain, and they wanted to know who the murderer was, and they looked at the eye, and they saw on the eye, Chveis Ploini ben Ploini, and they knew he was the murderer. Sharas Teshuvas, we're going to get to Bez in a second.
Evidence?
Sharas Teshuvas Beis Yitzchak, Chilek Aleph, Siman Pei Zayin, Oisdad, wait, listen to this. I heard that the Shoftim came up with a way to recognize the Roitzeach. Look in the Ishain. Now, what does the word Ishain mean?
Fire, smoke.
Hamer, right? The pupil. Ishain. Right? Okay, pass the siddur. If you want to know who the murderer was, look in the Ishain. Now, think for a moment. Why is it called an Ishain? Why is the pupil called an Ishain? We're going to see something amazing. And since, he says, everything that a person sees is chakuk on their eye, the last image will be very prominent on the ayah of the Nerzach. Mean the last thing the Nerzach saw was the Reitzeach.
Behind.
Okay, obviously it doesn't always work. However, now he says you can't kill someone based on this evidence, but he says if through this evidence you get the Reitzeach to be Moideh, you could kill him. I know the Marshias Atzmai is not Marshias Atzmai. We have evidence. Elamai, we're not 100% sure. If he's Moideh in conglomeration with the evidence of the eye, you can actually administer capital punishment. The Radak, in the Sefer HaSharashim, says the word Ishain, the root of it is Ish. Why? Because when you look at someone's pupil, what do you see? You, an Ish. The letters Vav Nun always make it small. For example, Shabbos, Shabbosoin. Yom Kippur is not as great of a Shabbos as Shabbos. It's a Shabbosoin, it's a miniature Shabbos. So too, Ishain is a miniature Ish. Why is a pupil called a miniature Ish? Because there's a miniature man in it. Which man? You. And the Radak says the same thing in Tehillim, Parak Yudzayin, Pasuk Ches, Shamreini Ke'ishain Basayin. Rabbeinu Bechai, Parshas Hazino, also says this idea. Now, why am I talking about this? Because you say, oh, well, what is this? Sounds like archaic, primitive medicine. Is that really true that everything a person sees is imprinted on a person? By the way, we say in Hamapil, the bracha before you go to sleep, Ki ata hameir li'ishayin bas oyin. Brachata Hashem hameir la'olam kulai b'chvoidai. Well, this week we experienced the solar eclipse. And there was a lot of warning that the solar eclipse could blind you. Now, the world's leading expert in the solar eclipse is a doctor by the name of Ralph Chu, professor emeritus at the School of Optometry and Vision Science at the University of Waterloo in Canada. Well, millions of people gazed at the sun, and they were warned that if you look at the sun without proper eye protection, you could actually go blind. The reason is because the retina has these light detectors that the power and the energy of the sun is so great that it's too much for the retina to be able to absorb. It actually, viewing the sun without those glasses could cause such heat to build up in the retina that steam could build up in the retina and destroy the cells of the retina. Says Dr. Chu, I have seen instances where the patient has eventually shown up with crescents burned into the back of the eye. And you can almost tell exactly when they looked. Meaning he could tell you what state you were in when you saw the eclipse by looking at your retina. And he has pictures of the retina of the eye. I'll show it to you. And based on the burn on the retina of the eye, you could tell how the person looked at the eclipse. Exactly what the Vilna Gaon says. That what a person sees is etched and written on the eye.
But that was a destructive etching. It's not like somebody looking at you and making a permanent record. It's not exactly parallel.
Well, that's the concept. Sunlight damages the eye by triggering a series of chemical reactions in the retina, the life-sensitive part at the back of the eye. Here, if you see in the left image, shows a healthy eye. The middle is the eye of a young adult male who viewed a partial solar eclipse repeatedly without protection, suffering both thermal and photochemical solar retinopathy. Several crescent-shaped scars can be seen over and around the fovea, the bright pinkish spot, making him legally blind in this eye. So there is a concept, not only metaphysically, but even physically, that what a person...
So the optometrist must have read the Vilna.
He saw the guy, he saw these Mahamakaimis, and he sees for himself that what a person looks at is permanently etched in some way or another onto the eye. And therefore, the Torah tells us in this week's Parsha, which is the first Parsha of the Mehel Elul, Shoftim v'Shoitrim titein lecha b'chol sha'arecha. You have to put guards and rulers over your gates. What are the gates? The Sefer HaYetzirah says there's 7 gates. the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, and the mouth. And a person has to put guards over them. Because what a person, with the nostril, you come home and the supper's not ready. What? The supper's not ready? And the fume come out of your nostrils. Kas.
Some of us do the cooking. So
What?
Some of us do the cooking.
So then, what are you doing in my kitchen? Right? So, anyway, so how dare you say that about my cooking? So you have to guard your eyes and your nose and your mouth and
Especially against you one.
Yeah. So that's the concept. So we spoke out on Monday, first of all, Shoftim, and also Shoitrim. Shoitrim is that a person wants to guard the gateways of their soul. That's not enough just to guard them with their seichel. You have to put rulers over them. What are the rulers? That if you violate your guidelines, so you penalize yourself. So in the earlier Sfarim, they say, you make a deal. If I look at something improper, I'm going to give $1 to tzedakah. So we mentioned that the Balei Musar say, no, that's not a good eitzah. Because people say, I'll give $100 to tzedakah. You take it and you shred it. You shred the dollar. That hurts. So that's the first step, the first message of Chodesh Elul is Shoftim v'Shoitrim titen lecha. What? Well, it's not Bal Tashchas. What? Dina de Malchusa. Dina? So don't tell them. So obviously, follow all the laws and rules of your local province. Abid as it may, this is the first message of Chodesh Elul Shoftim v'Shoitrim Titin Lecha B'Chol Sha'arecha, and that's why the beginning of Chodesh Elul we have an eclipse to teach us this limud that what a person sees is permanently etched onto their eye. Agidin Shabbos.
That's why Parshas Re'eh starts with
Re'eh.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.